Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Make sure you smash that like button down below and hit the subscribe button if you are new. So today we have to talk about Biden's approval rating tanking, absolute tanking, even in the fakest of all of the fake polls. I'm going to talk about exactly why the polls are fake and what's going on and what are the key issues driving Joe Biden's absolute collapse, and what could this mean for the upcoming 2022 midterms? We're going to talk about all this and more. But first, I do have to tell you guys about my good friends over at My Patriot Supply. After that winter wake-up call and the breakdown of the power grid, nobody can deny we're all quite vulnerable. We saw power grid failures and severe weather make the food supply chain come to a grinding halt in many parts of the country. Whenever that happens, people suffer. That's why it's smart to prepare in advance for these disasters by stocking up on long-term storage emergency food that stays fresh for up to 25 years so you never go hungry. I strongly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leader in self-reliance. They're the only source I use for emergency food planning, and right now you can save $50 off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that give you 2,000 plus calories a day. That's what you'll need to survive the next disaster. And saving $50 is impossible to pass up, but supplies are limited. So go to preparewithredeagle.com and stock up now. That's preparewithredeagle.com. There is no time to lose. Do it now. So the fake polls, we call them the fake polls, the Election Mafia. I thought I was done with these people, honestly, but they just keep coming. They're back, and they fail to acknowledge the polling errors of yesteryear and 4 years before that, as well as the 2018 midterms, which had abysmal polling errors as well, because they claim the polls are fixed, yet the polls end up being worse in Florida, worse in North Carolina, Ohio, Iowa, Indiana, Missouri, and just as bad as last time, even in Wisconsin, which was like a giant polling error. In Michigan, all the mainstream polls were off by 4 points. The only state that was remotely passable really did seem to be Pennsylvania, believe it or not, because the polls were just so abysmal in all places of the country. And whether they'll blame that on COVID, whether they'll blame that on a lack of polls, which both of those are kind of fallacies, by the way, it doesn't matter, given how they claimed the massive amount of confidence that they had in their polls, and you were called an idiot if you questioned the polls last time, and then they turned out to be so far off from the actual results that we saw on election night. So in terms of the margins, Biden's approval rating right now, I don't believe it's 53%. I don't believe it. We saw the polls favor Biden by 3 to 4% in the popular vote. Personally, I think his approval rating right now, even with the honeymoon period, because usually when your presidential term starts, you start off with, above water by 10 to 20 points or so. I would say Biden's approval rating is below 50%. Now, his disapproval rating might be less than 50% as well, meaning he may have a positive net approval rating, but it's not by much. And a lot of that approval isn't people that just love Joe Biden, he's super popular. No, a lot of that approval rating is soft approval, and his approval rating is getting softer, and his approval rating is going to continue to plummet as the Trump factor fades away and people are judging Joe Biden for who Joe Biden really is. And at some point, a lot of these people are going to say, hey, wait a minute, Trump wasn't that bad compared to this. Oh, yeah, our gas prices, $4, $5 for a gallon of gas. Oh, no, but the mean tweets were the problem. Eventually, when it hits them where it hurts, especially where that typically is the pocketbook, and people start to realize the perils of, returning to normal, which is really just returning to this, globalist type of neoliberal system. Yeah, well, people aren't going to like that return to normal, and they're going to want to return to normal of a national populist type of leader that Donald Trump was. So in terms of his approval rating, it's gone down significantly. His net approval rating was 21 points early February. Now it sits at a positive 11, and that is with a lot of these polls being complete and total garbage. Looking at this morning consult, throughout most of Trump's presidency, they didn't even include a morning consult in the polls. They didn't even include that one until, I believe it was his last year, they started to put it in a little bit more. But morning consult, Reuters, and The Hill typically were a little bit off the final. Actually, the Hill throughout Trump's presidency was relatively a reliable poll in terms of what his actual approval rating really was. Economist was, pretty good for the first half of his term, but then it kind of went off the rails. Rasmussen usually overfavored Trump, although at times it did overfavor Obama later in his presidency as well, but nobody likes to talk about that. But when it comes down to Morning Consult, we don't even have to talk about them. They're inflating this average. The Monmouth, the NPR, the CNN, those polls really probably are in line with reality more so than the others. And it's funny to see this. There's no way that an adult poll should even be included in the mix. The rest of the polls are registered voters, not likely voters, even though a likely voter screen this early out from like the midterms doesn't exactly bode well in terms of predicting approval rating because we really don't know what the likely voters are going to be. But in terms of the polls that we do see here, there tends to be a two-tiered polling system. You have the polls that have Biden's approval roughly around, 50%, and the others that are super inflated that have it at like 60%, and then plenty of undecideds as well in some of the other ones. That's not exactly what adds up to be a realistic poll. In fact, some of the polls aren't even being included in the RCP average, even left-leaning polls like PPP that has Biden's approval rating at 47, disapproval at 43, so yes, there's 10% undecided, but they didn't include this poll. Why didn't they include this poll? Because it doesn't fit the narrative, because there's an election mafia that's going on within our polling institutions that try to set a narrative. Oh, neoliberal guy popular, corpse man popular, guy who can't remember his name popular. No, not going to work that way. And you could look further into this. The polls are poorly conducted. Even in the Economist poll, you can see that Biden, among independents, is only above water by 2%. There's virtually no way that Biden is at 15% with Republicans in this polarized environment. This is not 2009 anymore. This is 2021. And all Republicans are very anti-Biden, just the same way that all the Democrats are anti-Trump. So the fact is they typically sample elitist Republicans, oversample them in the polls, and that's typically what they do. They typically do the same thing with seniors. We heard months and months on end, Trump's going to lose seniors, and even, both of the exit polls we saw, again, exit polls have their issues this cycle, but Trump won seniors by a fairly standard margin, and when you look at the key places in Florida where seniors typically live, Trump increased his support in many counties. So it's very unlikely that Trump just failed with seniors the way that the election mafia said it would happen, and also the fact that he's over water by 2% with independents. Again, typically oversampling the suburbanites in these polls. You think he'd be over water significantly with the independents when you take that into consideration, but no, he's not. It doesn't really look that well, and you have to understand that Biden has problems. Gas prices are increasing significantly. There's an immigration crisis at the border because of the executive orders that Biden in part signed. And looking at this, Biden's approval rating in the CNN poll on immigration, underwater by 6 points, underwater with whites by 25, underwater with men by 15, barely over water with women, and even underwater with Zoomers and millennials. And even, the college whites are roughly half and half in this poll, independent significantly underwater. Looking at the non-white vote, a lot of that approval does likely come from black voters. So it is very likely that Biden on immigration, not even that popular among Hispanic voters, talking about the South Texas realignment we saw this election, there are potential signs of that continuing into the 2022 midterms. But if this is true and if this holds, and if Biden's approval continues to tank, currently at plus 11, it was at plus 21 at the start of last month. That has declined significantly. And the polls are garbage. The polls are in part fake because they are specifically rigged in their methodology in favor of Joe Biden. That means that plus 11 could be plus 5. It could end up being 0 in reality within a couple of weeks or so, and it's going to be interesting to monitor. But the honeymoon period is over for Joe Biden. He has several scandals he's dealing with, and it's going to hold back his presidency for sure. We don't know if he's actually going to serve for the rest of his term. We are almost certain he won't run for a second term. And if that is the case, I'm pretty sure that Trump or Ron DeSantis is going to have an easy victory over Kamala Harris in 2024. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media, especially alt tech. The links are in the description below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.